Exterior, Italian countryside, afternoon. A taxi treks up a winding road past cypress trees, sunflowers, and terraces of olives.
Thurin John once wrote, "Stones dream of shapes they might become. The sculptor has but to listen."
Inside, Ellen Corsair, 24, American, a driven sculptress, unzips her Prada fanny pack and withdraws a well-worn acceptance letter. The Thurin John quote is scrawled on a post-it attached to the letter. She peels it back. The letter reads, "Congratulations, Ms. Corsair. You've been accepted to our all-expense paid workshop in Italy." Ellen smiles and looks out the window. The luscious greenery gives way to a marble quarry pit. The taxi descends towards the shimmering landscape of the marble mines. Exterior, Carrara marble mines, continuous. The driver, 40s, slows to a stop, and Ellen steps out. Wide-eyed, she stares down the imposing black hole of a mouth to the mines. The jagged stone sticks out like crooked teeth.
Are you certain this is the address, Signora?
She tears herself away from the mine. Ellen looks down at luxurious photos in a brochure, then over to the less-than-picturesque workshop nearby. She hands the driver cash.
"This is the place. I assure you it's very prestigious despite its appearance."
Americans. Last week I drove a girl who came to learn how to paint the Tuscan sunlight. I asked if she'd ever heard of Google Earth.
Ellen collects 2 small bags from the back seat.
Michelangelo's David was my screensaver for years. I flew into Florence just to see him. I sat there for 2 days and imagined carving every single inch. The photos don't do him justice.
She slams the door and rolls her bags toward the workshop. Interior, Carrara marble workshop, evening. Freshly cut marble dust hangs heavy in the air. Giant blocks of white marble are carefully positioned around the room, ready to be sculpted. Several completed statues stand proudly, a few of them covered by tarps. Ellen pushes open the door and strides into the workshop. She spots a massive display map of the mine on the wall. The tunnels go on for miles. She takes a deep breath and inhales some of the dust. She immediately starts coughing.
Another amateur.
Armed with a hammer and chisel, Pietro, 60s, Italian, harder to stomach than a shot of grappa, steps out from behind a statue of a ballerina. Spooked, Ellen jumps back.
The mines are closed for the evening. Come back tomorrow.
"I'm the contest winner, Ellen Corsair. You must be Pietro."
Pietro dismisses her and slips on a pair of safety glasses. With his chisel, he attacks the ballerina in small bursts. Stone falls to the ground and crunches under his feet.
"The Marble Institute said you'd be expecting me?"
She holds up her acceptance letter and marches between Pietro and his ballerina. He tosses his glasses down on a bench.
So, you're the Yankee.
"I'm more of a Red Sox fan myself, but yes, I'm from the States. So, how about a tour of the mine?"
Closed, as I said. I'm sure you want to get to some rest.
From her fanny pack, Ellen withdraws a sketch of a man on his knees, longingly reaching out. It's meticulous and laminated.
"I'm here to work. I've been dreaming of picking up the best marble in the world for months."
Pietro snatches the acceptance letter and sketch from her hands. He rolls his eyes at the post-it.
Thurin John forgot to warn future sculptors that once you hear the stone, it never stops.
He crumples the post-it.
Marble is for masterpieces. Your sketch is all wrong. The hands are, how you say, blah.
She plucks the sketch out of his hands and reviews it.
"Excuse me, sir, but this sketch beat out hundreds of applicants."
He yanks the tarp off of a statue of the god Jupiter and guides her toward it.
I don't abide excuses. I should be able to feel the skeleton, the tension in the muscles, the veins through the skin before you ever start sculpting. Your sketch doesn't make me feel anything.
Ellen runs her finger along the veins of the statue's hand.
"This is a phlebotomist's dream."
The Institute may have liked your idea, but you still need to prove yourself to me, to the marmo. You show me first with clay.
He reaches under a large stainless steel workbench and drops a chunk of clay in front of her. Ellen pushes it back to him.
I didn't come here to work with materials I could get off Etsy. I came to Italy to take my skills to the next level. I just saw the David in person and...
Pietro spits on the ground.
Michelangelo! I've worked beside this marble for years, and I still can't see the stone in the same way he did, let alone hear it.
Can we start over?
You shouldn't even be allowed to look at the marble yet. It's like giving a child watercolors instead of crayons.
He covers the statue of Jupiter with its tarp.
Michelangelo worked on David for...
Ellen stares at the ballerina, and its mouth appears to move. The marble seems to whisper to Ellen.
3 years.
3 years, I know.
Noticeably not hearing the marble statue speak, Pietro stares at a transfixed Ellen.
Are you prepared to stay here until the stone speaks to you?
Determined, Ellen tucks her sketch away and zips her fanny pack.
That won't be a problem.
Pleased, Pietro nods.
Demonstrate you can make the hands masterfully with clay. Then we can discuss an allotment of marble. Buonanotte, Marmo.
Pietro heads into his office. Ellen puts her ear to the ballerina's mouth and listens for more. The statue murmurs softly into her eager ear. Interior, Carrara Marble Workshop, later. Ellen reviews her sketch and picks up a half-empty bottle of wine. She uncorks it with her teeth, spits it out, and sips. She looks over to the ballerina.
He's right. The hands are all wrong.
You must unleash your full potential, or he'll never let you work with me.
Montage. She uncaps a pen and marks up some changes to her sketch. Ellen slams her fist into the clay and then kneads it. She chugs a bottle of wine. In a tipsy trance, Ellen removes the tarp from the statue of Jupiter and wraps it around her shoulders. She studies the god's strong hands. Something clicks. She drops the tarp. Ellen hurries back to her clay and shapes the hands over and over until they match her new sketch perfectly. Spent, she rests her head on the workbench.
Buonanotte, signora.
End montage. Interior, Carrara Marble Workshop, morning. Ellen sleeps at the workbench. Pietro drapes a tarp over her shoulders and circles the clay sculpture. He crouches down and assesses the clay hands from all angles, then stands up on a chair and drops a book by her head. Slam! Ellen sits up and wipes clay and drool off her face.
I thought you were here to work.
So how'd I do?
Technically speaking, it's mediocre. Is that who you are as a sculptress?
The feedback stings.
I don't do mediocre.
This speaks to you?
Don't answer that.
Ellen doesn't answer and balls up the clay.
Then it's wrong.
He turns his back to face his ballerina sculpture. Ellen lifts the clay to throw at him, but stops herself.
Let's try something easier.
Interior, Carrara Marble Workshop, night. Ellen holds her arms above her head in a tortured pose. Sweat beads on her forehead. She looks at the ballerina statue. She attempts to mirror its form and elegance, and fails miserably at it. Ellen's arms tremble and fall to her side. Pietro claps his hands together.
Arms up. She wants to sculpt and can't even imitate the statue.
It's not how I would sculpt it.
Show him.
She should be joy-stricken, launching into flight like this.
Ellen demonstrates by jumping in the air in a perfect jeté pose, but Pietro refuses to look up at her.
I couldn't possibly hear the marble with you rambling. Arms up!
See what I've been dealing with?
Ellen takes a deep breath, lifts her quivering arms, and matches the statue. She exhales slowly as her nails dig into her palm.
If you'd only let me show you.
I've seen enough.
Pietro drops his chisel.
Basta. That's enough for this evening. Buonanotte, Marmo.
He looks to Ellen, who is again transfixed by the marble. Pietro storms off into his office. Ellen stretches her tired arms and legs.
It took Pietro years to hear me. But you heard me at first sight.
Exterior Carrara marble mines, continuous. Ellen steps out of the workshop. She massages her shoulders and looks toward the mouth of the mine. Drawn to it, she marches up to the opening and stares into the darkness.
I will do whatever it takes to become a master sculptor. Whatever silly test Pietro wants to throw at me, I'll excavate the stone myself if I have to.
Whatever it takes, you say?
Interior Carrara marble workshop, evening, a few days later. Insert, a few days later. Ellen paces around the workshop, staring at a clay bust of the ballerina. Displeased, she massages a few lines into place.
Stop wasting your time.
Ellen glares at the marble ballerina sculpture. She pulls over a chair and steps up to inspect its hands.
It's been days and he still hasn't let me work with you.
You must fix me. It's your destiny.
Ellen unzips her fanny pack and withdraws her customized chisel and hammer. Consumed, she chips away at some excess marble. Ellen leans in to admire her work, but topples off the chair. Hearing the commotion, Pietro barges into the room and stops. He inspects his statue and sees where Ellen's worked on it.
You dare defile my marble?
I didn't defile it, I fixed it. It's why you invited me here.
Pietro pushes the ballerina over. The statue shrieks as it topples. It crashes to the ground, sending shards across the marble-tiled floor. Ellen falls to her knees and frantically sweeps up the pieces.
How could you?
If you saw the David tipped over, would you not expect to see bones and blood spill forth? Niente!
Ellen pieces the statue's face back together, particularly its mouth. She slices her hand. The red blood drips and stains the white marble.
Don't you see? I didn't listen well enough. There's no blood but yours. I have failed the stone.
Ellen cradles the stone mouth in her hands.
Avenge me, Ellen!
Pietro wraps her hand up with a rag.
Now you can take the tour. Andiamo. Come, come.
He rushes her outside and grabs the map off the wall. Exterior, Carrara marble mines, night. Ellen stares down the inky black mouth of the mine. Pietro hands her a hard hat. He dons one himself and looks at the map. Devoured by the darkness, they step inside.
I waited my entire life for this.
Interior, Carrara marble mines, continuous. The air is damp and stagnant. Ellen slaps her hard hat against her palm. The headlamp clicks on and illuminates a wall of marble. Like subterranean starlight, it glints and dances.
This section is off limits, too unstable. Some believe it's maledetto, cursed.
Pietro looks up. The shaft of light falls on a colony of bats. They take flight and rush past them.
This is where Michelangelo excavated the marble for David, isn't it?
Mesmerized, Ellen is drawn closer to the marble.
White as bone.
She places her palms against the cold stone.
Michelangelo didn't select the marble for David. He was actually the third artist to work on the stone Donatello named the Giant. The first two stared down the giant and lost.
Ellen leans against the wall and doesn't recoil from the cold. Instead, she embraces it and stretches her arms out wide. Her bloody hand streaks the pristine white stone.
This piece here will do nicely.
You do not choose the marble.
Ellen places her ear to the stone and listens. The mine quiets. Her breathing and heartbeat slow down.
The marble chooses you.
There's a crackle of electricity. Ellen's headlamp shorts out. Suddenly, the stone swallows her whole. The marble ripples, then flattens out. Pleased, Pietro crumples the map, turns off his headlamp, and strolls off. A beat. Suddenly, Ellen's hand emerges from the stone. She grips the wall and pulls herself out. She gasps and collapses to her knees. Her eyes flash inky black, then return to normal. Interior, Pietro's office, night. It looks like a smaller, eerier version of Bodies, the exhibition. Articulated skeletons and muscle forms line the wall. Pietro kneels before a 10-foot-tall block of marble.
You've gone quiet since she arrived. Please speak to me again. I hoped another sacrifice would...
Ellen kicks in the door and stalks into the room.
You left me down there!
Pietro stands.
You were the one dying to get in.
He's kept you from all of this, worried you'd surpass him.
Michelangelo needed to rob graves to study the human anatomy this closely. You amateur sculptors all come willingly.
She steps closer to inspect a skeleton articulated like the ballerina. It stands on a base with wheels. With hungry eyes, Ellen traces the bones with her hand.
This is why you run the contest.
The hungrier the artist, the better the meal for the marble.
Pietro launches into a macabre waltz with the skeleton. As he spins it around, the articulated bones rattle.
This is the contest winner that arrived before you. Her works have gone on to show in the galleries of her dreams. Do you know how much value is added to an artist's work after they disappear?
He pushes the skeleton towards Ellen. She catches it.
You should thank her. Her work paid for you to be here.
You had me working with clay when I could have been studying these?
You weren't ready yet.
Ellen gravitates towards the 10-foot block of marble.
Before I was a marmo maestro, I worked here in the mine. I've kept that slab safe for over 15 years.
Ellen runs her fingers along the marble's edge.
But you're ready now.
I'm ready.
No, you're not. Oh, you hear it too?
She touches her face to the cool marble monolith and smiles.
You know what you must do.
Please, ask the marble to speak to me again. Together we could...
Ellen looks down at her strong, calloused hands. She takes a chisel off the table and feels its weight.
Don't you see? You stared down the marble and lost. You're Donatello, and I'm Michelangelo.
She plunges the chisel into his heart. Pietro crumbles to the ground. In a gruesome depiction of La Pietà, he reaches out to her. He tries to decipher some meaning in her face, but Ellen's stone cold. Or as the Italians say, Pietra Fredda.
The hands...
Ellen looks down and memorizes his bloody hands. She pulls the chisel out of Pietro's chest and sets to work on the marble. She chips away at the stone. Interior, Carrara Marble Workshop, night. 1 year later. Super, 1 year later. A fresh-faced Australian man, 30s, bursts through the door. He takes a deep breath and coughs.
The mines are closed for the evening. Come back tomorrow.
But I'm a contest winner.
Ellen steps out from behind a covered statue. She removes the tarp with a flourish. Pietro's resemblance is unmistakable. Just like in her sketch, the statue longingly holds his arms out. The hands are just right. She exhales. The Australian looks on in awe. Ellen looks him up and down.
Another amateur.
Ellen looks to a fresh block of marble.
Let's begin.
Fade to black.